joining us. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Really excited to be with you, and congratulations on everything that you've achieved so far, Matt and Alan. The podcast series is fantastic.
Thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much. Thank you.
This is actually the 30th episode we've done since the season ended. So yeah, that is a lot of hours.
It's a lot of hours. Do you have time for your homework?
Yeah, I'll find time for it.
Yeah, it squeezes it in, don't you?
Yeah. I'd firstly like to start and ask about your ski racing career, because you went to the 1988 Olympics in Calgary. So, taking you back to the very beginning, what made you want to get into, and what got you into the sport?
Well, as a kid, growing up in North London, I was very sporty. I did all sorts of sports, everything possible. I absolutely love football. That was my real passion. I did gymnastics, judo, table tennis. Sort of, if there was a local club, I did it, and played football and cricket in the garden with my dad. But also, I played football in organised teams. But there wasn't girls' football then. And when you get to 14, then that's it. You couldn't play with the boys anymore. And there wasn't organised football for the girls near to where we lived. And I had started skiing on ski holidays. I'd had the opportunity because my mum had gone on a trip after she had qualified as a solicitor, and went to Italy with family friends who were Italians, and they took her up skiing for a day. And she wasn't sporty at all, but she said, "Gosh, this is brilliant. When I have kids, they're going to do this when they're kids." And that's exactly what happened. We were very lucky that she said she never forgot it. And as more or less as soon as we could walk, well, a little bit more, I guess I was probably about 5, me and my brother, she took us skiing. And so then we went every year, and I must have been very good at first. I found small pictures from the first ski holiday, actually, recently. Yeah, we went every year, and then I started doing the ski school competitions, and they were surprised that a British girl was winning these ski school competitions, and did all my sort of badges. And we ended up in a place called Meyerhofen, which is in the Tyrol in Austria, not too far from Innsbruck. And the ski school there was run by Olympic champions. And their son was one of the big stars of the World Cup at that time. Not that I really knew what all that meant, because not like today where you can follow everything in the media, there was nothing. I definitely hadn't seen Winter Olympics on the television by then. But anyway, he was a very famous ski racer called Uli Spiess, and he was actually the first ski racer who jumped both of the camel jumps at Val Gardena. Now, you won't have been living since before that happened, but it didn't used to be the case. It used to be the case that they would try to compress them. But no, Uli, he was quite a jumper, and he flew over them. And anyway, he came back from his ski racing, and his parents had said to him, "Would you take Sarah for some skiing, because she's very good?" And off we went, and this was just amazing. And they said to me, "Listen, there's a British ski racing club in the next valley. We'd like to tell them about you, and see if you'd like to continue ski racing." Well, that's what happened. And they were in the next valley called Alpbach. And there's a ski club there, Alpbach Visitors Ski Club.
Yeah.
And you've probably interviewed some of the former members, or may even be current members. And they invited me to come along on their training camp. So off I went on a training camp, all excited. And there I met a bunch of lads, of course, it was pretty much all lads back then. And they said, "You should come and join our club in England." England? Skiing? Really? Where? And they said, "Oh, we all ski at Sandown Park." Sandown Park Ski Racing Club. There's a dry slope. Dry slope? What's that? Well, that's what we did. And even though I lived on the other side of London, and then that wasn't kind of as easy to get round it as it is today. But I was very lucky that my dad was a real sports frog. He loved sport and really wanted to support me. And he loved driving. A good combination for a sporty kid.
Yeah.
So Dad used to drive me there on Sunday mornings for 8 o'clock training. And we had about an hour and a half to get there. And then on Monday nights, I would go there, go to his office after work, and then he would take me down for training. And then I got selected quite quickly for the English junior squad. And that was when I sort of found out about this pathway of having national competitions. And then these were members of then a British team, British junior team, and you could compete internationally. So, yeah, that's sort of how I got into to ski racing and how really it kind of all came together.
Lovely.
Very good.
It's a good story, that. Good story.
And then
Yeah.
moving on to your more professional career when you raced at the Olympics.
Gonna need to put a little pause. I've just had someone call at the door.
Oh, no worries.
Okay.
Let me just make a note of the time and I can edit it out. Don't worry. Go on.
Sorry.
Grandma. I think she wants something. What do you want? What do you want? You came, I thought you wanted something. Oh, someone's just knocked at her door. What minute is it? What minute is it? No, I know it's not. I know, but what time did we start? I think it's about 6.
Okay, Matt. Yep.
Are you okay?
Yeah, all set.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, good. Right. So moving to the Winter Olympics, which you competed in '88, as I mentioned. What was that like? Of course, you'd already been surrounded by some great skiers early on in your career, but what was it like to go to the biggest event?
Well, I mean, this of course was, yeah, the ultimate. It really was a dream. And I think to sort of go back a step actually to getting from being a member of the English junior squad, having learnt racing on a dry slope. There weren't many Dave Rydings back then. This was kind of us. There wasn't anyone else who'd made a British team, having learnt on a dry slope, learnt ski racing. And there was myself, and there was one of the other members of the club, Nigel Smith. And we both came second in the British Junior Slalom Championships in 1980. And we were then selected for the junior team. And then we both also made it through to the senior team. And so it kind of showed that there's this pathway for kids also from dry ski slopes. And yeah, this was really exceptional. Now, in 1980, I'd just finished my exams at school, which back then were called O-levels. And I said to my parents, look, I would really like to go to a ski academy. I've heard from a couple of the racers that there are such things, and it's your education, and they're in the Alps, and you get to train and compete with, really the best athletes in the Alps, in Austria or in Switzerland or in France, wherever they are. And luckily, my dad, being so passionate about sport, he said, well, look, I mean, if you've got this opportunity to pursue a ski racing career at a high level, that's something that, you know, we would like to support you with. You can always go back and do education afterwards, because, you know, it wasn't possible to do kind of parallel education online, and to do both. So I did the exams, and in Austria, I'd qualified to go to Schladming, which was actually where there was another British girl at that time, a Scot, Kirsten Cairns. But they decided that they weren't going to accept foreigners as of that year, or specifically for that year. I guess they didn't want the foreigners to get better than their own athletes. And, you know, it was a government funded school. So I was all disappointed. But then we found out that there was actually a school in France as well. And it was a regular state school, but with a ski academy attached to it. And they accepted me warmly. And so off I went to a ski academy in France. But I was only there for 2 terms, because once I'd been selected for the British junior team, they said, well, actually, if you're going to compete internationally for Great Britain, you need to follow our programme. And really, I took a decision, and that's what I did. So I followed the programme to go with the British junior team and did some international races, and then made my way through the system, FIS points, and qualified for the British alpine ski team. In 1983, I won the British Slalom Championship, and then I was optimistic that I would be selected for the 1984 Games in Sarajevo. And in 1984, I won the Lowlanders Championships, but I was second in the Slalom Championships, the British Championships, and they decided, or there was a decision at Olympic level, that they would only take 1 technical skier, whereas for the previous Games there'd been more. So yeah, I wasn't selected, and very disappointed, but I basically knuckled down and said, right, that's it. 1988, here we come. And I managed to qualify for the 1988 Games in Calgary. Very, very special and memorable moment, and really, I would say pretty much life-changing, actually, because you realise just the scope of the Olympic movement. We lived in the university in Calgary, in downtown Calgary, and it was where all of the sports, pretty much all of the sports, were based. The Nordic skiers, they were out at Canmore, which so that it's quite far from Calgary, so that they were quite close to their venue. But otherwise, everyone was there from all sports. And the British team, or now Team GB, we had our kind of own headquarters, our own area. So all of the British athletes from all of the different sports, we were all living in there. And there was sort of where the boys were and where the girls were, and then a common area in the middle, which was kind of like a bit of a common area. And so you all met and discussed your sports and yeah, all sorts of things. And it was fantastic, and made, you know, many great friendships from back then, you know, because it wasn't the time then that you could sit on screens or communicate via social media. You know, you had to talk to each other. And that was kind of the entertainment, really. But it was great. And then there was the main dining room, and that's where you also got to interact with athletes and teams and everybody from all over the world. So, I mean, this was quite some experience. And then also at the university, fantastic sport facilities. So we would use the gym there, and you could be with ice hockey players and speed skaters and athletes from all sorts of different sports. And so I must say, I felt pretty intimidated and overwhelmed with that aspect of it. But it was a huge thrill.
Very good.
Yeah. Do you think the experience you had then, do you think it is similar to today's experience, or do you think they don't sort of mix the same as they used to do in the days you're talking about?
They definitely don't mix in that same way. Not all of the athletes. I mean,
No.
most of the top athletes, and not only from the Winter Games, but also from the Summer Games, they actually don't stay in the Olympic Village because they want to optimize their performance. And I mean, as you can imagine, if there's a bug, guess where it's going, around to everybody. And you don't prepare for 4 years to then get ill, thanks to being kind of in a village with a lot of people. So there are, risks involved with it. And yeah, but that was really the system back then. And I wasn't in a stage in my ski racing career where I was going to be challenging for medals, and so it's somewhat different. But even back then, a lot of the top athletes were still in the village, but there were some of them because the alpine events were taking place at Nakiska, which also was a certain distance, and they were staying out there to be right at the venue, and which is more convenient, and then they're in their own enclosed environment. But nowadays you'll see, and actually with the way that the games are changing, Alan, insofar as they're using existing venues. When you see the next games, the Milano Cortina games, there isn't really a centralized place at all. You've got the ice sports down in the Milan region, and then you've got the snow sports at all sorts of different venues. Alpine skiing is taking place in 2 venues actually, which are not very close to each other. Cortina d'Ampezzo, where you've got the women and the men's tech, and then you've got Bormio, which has got the men's speed. You've got cross-country skiing and all the Nordic events actually in Val di Fiemme, and biathlon in Anterselva in Antholz, and the snowboard freestyler in Livigno. Ski mountaineering, I think that is in Bormio, but don't hold me to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that with what you're saying, the way you're talking, I would suggest perhaps that you had the opportunity to gain more life skills from the way things were then than what they are now. Would you agree?
Well, to an even greater extent, not just at the games, Alan, in fact, because there were even less resources than there are now to a certain extent. The organisation was a voluntary one, and there wasn't a professional setup. The coaches were employed, but the federation did tend to run out of money in about December or January, because the level that I was at, I was having to contribute basically to everything. And there anyway wasn't a coach for the women's tech team because there was one women's team coach. And so because of the safety factors, he went with the downhillers. So Leslie Beck and I, we were on our own, and we did our own thing. And I just passed my driving test, and I'd organised to get a sponsored car. So we went round the circuit by ourselves. And that's really how it was. And we made our own arrangements. We went to our team captains meetings, and then we managed to hook up with some other teams who would help and support us. And I mean, we got fantastic help and support, but I mean, the life skills that we learned are absolutely fantastic. And really, we were very capable of we managed ourselves. We were effectively, for a lot of the time, coaching ourselves. We handled our own finances. Then it was very different for doing competition entries, for finding out if competitions were taking place or not. You had to phone up. You had to really be very diligent in that regard. You couldn't just slap something in Google Maps and off you went. You had to find out where to go and how to get there, and Yeah, so it was really fantastic life skills. And actually, when it came to the Olympics, yeah, I mean, there was this whole entourage there from the Olympic team and also from the ski team. So that was very different.
Mm. I'm going to ask, what was it after your athletic career, your professional ski racing career, that made you want to contribute to FIS and play your part in that side of things?
Well, as an athlete, I didn't actually know really that FIS existed as a governing body, as a place where you could potentially work. I knew it as the FIS calendar and the FIS points, and wasn't actually aware that it was a governing body and what a governing body did in any case. So during the latter part of my racing career, as I said, I was skiing independently and with my own program and doing my own thing. And actually, I'd hooked back up with the England junior squad, who I'd originally come through in order to really have a sort of a program which was tailored for me. And during that period, I began actually helping them with their organisation and their management for arranging for training camps and all sorts of arrangements for the junior team whilst I was doing my own thing. So I'd sort of got into team management in that way. And then after I retired, I set up my own company. And I was doing public relations and event organisation and some media work. And I can give you a few tips with your commentating afterwards, Matt, although I expect Graham can give you even better ones. But and then I continued to assist the English Alpine squad as a volunteer manager within a little group of us. And yeah, it was fantastic. So the British Ski Federation, as it was known then, now GB Snowsport, they were required by the then predecessor to UK Sport. So it was the kind of the sports arm of the UK government, that if they wanted any funding and to have their support, they actually had to set up a professional organisation. And this kind of just temporary each season, and let's see how we get along, and we'll get a bit of money from the UK government, and then when it runs out, it runs out. So they had to establish a professional organisation, and they asked me if I would take on the role of the Alpine director. So that's what I did. I mean, at first I was a bit reluctant because I'd set up my little company a couple of years earlier and I was doing really well. I was finally able to earn some money, and I talked to what had been my fellow colleagues in the team not long before, and they said, listen, Sarah, like us, we'd all complained that if we'd had professional management and we'd had a better organisation, that we could have achieved more. You don't say no to it, do you? So I put everything in the car and drove up to Edinburgh, which was where the British Ski Federation had located, and we got cracking. And so that's how I started with the British Ski Federation. I then found out that, well, okay, the British Ski Federation is a member of the International Ski Federation. And the International Ski Federation, okay, it doesn't just dictate, these are the rules, this is what you do. Its members, like the British Ski Federation, can make proposals, can attend meetings, can be part of actually the governance of the organisation. Well, that sounds interesting. And until then, there were members, representatives from Great Britain who were technical delegates and who were officials at an international level who represented the British Ski Federation at FIS. But we rather felt, sort of coming in now as this new professional organisation, that we should actually understand how FIS works and interact with other national associations and learn how they do things, and try and build up some cooperation and things like that. So off we went to the FIS meetings and found out about the organisation. And that, oh, we could nominate members for committees. So the new professional group, we were all nominated to be in our respective committees. I was nominated for the Alpine Committee and for the European Cup Committee. And yeah, so I was elected to there. And then you find out a lot more about what's happening and what's going on. Now, as Alpine Director, I was also on the circuit with the teams a lot of the time. And as you can imagine, I was kind of in a group of one, being females on the World Cup circuit and really kind of any other circuit. But I was involved in quite a lot of competition juries because it was very useful for them to have someone from Great Britain in a jury. Firstly, I spoke languages. I'd been to school in France. My French was fluent. We had Austrian coaches in the team, and I picked up some German from them, so I could get by in languages. And also, your referees who are appointed to the juries, you need them to stay to the end of the competition every time. And generally, we had athletes who were, not only, we had some top ones, Martin and Graham Bell, Leslie Beck, Emma Carrick-Anderson, Claire de Portal, Ronald Duncan. We had some really good athletes, but we also had athletes who were starting further back. So it was a convenient jury member for them. So I got more and more involved within sort of the whole structure, met more people, and clearly they saw that I was capable. And having gone from being a former athlete and at a ski academy internationally, so I had a certain good understanding there from a real alpine nation, and now working at this level within FIS. So FIS also got to the stage that they saw they needed to professionalise the management of the competitions and appointed a race director, which has been in place now since the early 90s. So that there was a professional technical delegate effectively to have the same one at every competition, very much for safety reasons, but also for impartiality and for fairness as well. And then it got to the level that after they had them on the men's and the women's side, and the World Cup was really professional, that was sort of off on its own journey. What's going on underneath? It's kind of a bit chaotic. There isn't really a qualification pathway, how to move on through. So they agreed that they should appoint a coordinator for the Continental Cup circuit. And when I read this and heard about this then at the FIS meetings, I said, well, I'd be really interested in being considered for that position. And so I approached the Secretary General and said that. And the interview was, well, when would you like to start? So because I'd actually had the opportunity to meet people and they'd seen what I was capable of doing, and I'd been involved now for 4 years, I guess that in itself was kind of an interview. And so after the Lillehammer Games season, 1994, I joined FIS. That was already in the summer of 93 when those discussions took place. But I wanted to stay through the season. We prepared it properly to make sure it could have a really good, proper transition and handover and enable its preparation for the next Olympic cycle. So I put everything in the car again from Edinburgh, and off we went to Switzerland. I began working as a Continental Cup coordinator for FIS in 1994, 30 years ago. Things went from there.
Yeah,
good.
Very
good.
Very interesting, that.
So
That is.
You then spent quite a number of years still involved with FIS as the Secretary General. So obviously still heavily involved. And I want to ask about some of the, not issues, but subjects that have been brought up, mostly since you've left that role, about the gender equality and the climate, which are something that needs to be spoken about across all sports, not just winter sports or ski racing. So were steps being made, and are those steps still being made to try and address those issues? Yeah, thanks, Al.
Yeah, so after 4 years of running Continental Cups, the then Secretary General was elected president, and he then asked after a few months if I would take on the role of Secretary General. And yeah, of course, I was honoured to do so, and agreed to do so. To touch on one of the issues you've brought up, he did say to me that at the time, I was now 29, that however, if I was considering starting a family, then that was going to be very difficult for me to do that job with all the travel that's involved and so on. And it was then very customary in Switzerland that actually, if you had a family, that you would stop working. And I've got to say that changed pretty fast once I took over in terms of the staff at the federation. But between working for starting at the British Ski Federation and leaving to go to Switzerland, I had actually collected a partner. My partner, Jørn, who was a Norwegian ski coach and then became program director. He came with me to Switzerland, and it wasn't on our agenda, actually. So it's a question you wouldn't dream to ask somebody, and certainly you would find a solution if they're the right person in terms of how to build it into the way they operate and the way they work. But I did take on the job, and so that's a little answer to part of your question. But yeah, gender equality just wasn't a subject back in 1994, because this is how it is. And I really was a lone ranger again. And across international sport, there were very, very few women in leadership positions. There was one actually at the International Tennis Federation, the director, Debbie Jevons, who now is the first female chair of the All England Tennis Club at Wimbledon, the role that she's taken on from this year. So it's taken Wimbledon until this year to appoint a female chair. But Debbie was at the International Tennis Federation, and I was at FIS, and that was it back then. But also within FIS, I mean, now, I had a lot of work to do to convince a number of people to that I was capable of doing the job, but I wasn't really troubled by that at all, because I'd kind of been used to working in that environment. And as a kid, playing football, I played football with the boys. I went to football to support football with the boys. It was just sort of, I knew the environment. It wasn't something that fazed me. And I didn't see it as being, well, this isn't how it should be. It was like, this is how it is, and you just deal with it. But I was also aware that I had to work extra hard and really prove myself, not to be sort of catalogued as, well, what do you expect? It's only a woman. Nevertheless, I realised that actually I had really quite a responsibility to be a role model for other women, to show that actually this is a job you can do, and this is a job that we're very capable of doing. There's no reason why other women can't work at this level within sport. And within about 5 years, there were several other international federations who appointed female secretary generals. And within just the winter sports federations, the Olympic winter sports federations, of which there are 7, there's now 8 with ski mountaineering, but there were 7 full members. 3 had female secretary generals within 10 years of me beginning. And so I saw this as an important step. But then it became very clear that listen, we need to proactively try to engage and try to get more women involved, and to give them the opportunities. And whilst I very much believe in every position that I've had, I've wanted to be, and I still want to be, the right person for the job. Not, let's engage Sarah because she's a woman, that will tick a box. That wasn't me. I do see that it is important that until we get to the situation that we are gender blind and everybody is judged on their capabilities, just to get more women in the system, and so that they are respected for what they're capable of doing, that it is helpful in some cases to have regulations to facilitate their role. So we implemented a program at FIS called 5 Steps to Gender Equality, and we established a working group, and we were really working assiduously to encourage women at different levels within the sport. The field of play, I think, is an important point to touch on. The field of play has always been pretty balanced, and that's not the case across all sports. But in skiing, when prize money was first introduced, and that was after I'd finished racing, but it was before I started working at FIS. I was at the British Ski Federation nearly by then. Prize money was introduced in 1990. It was always equal for alpine skiing and for cross-country skiing, and when it was introduced for snowboard and freestyle, it was always equal, men and women. Wasn't a difference. Ski jumping and Nordic combined is another story. And there it wasn't at the same level, basically because of the value that the sport was bringing in from a commercial perspective and from the rights. It was kind of aligned with its value from a financial sense, as opposed to its value from its value to the sports and its value in many other respects. But step by step, it improved. So field of play, we didn't really have a problem. The interest also was quite notable, that in some countries they were much bigger fans of the women. I mean, obviously, during the Lindsey Vonn era, now during Michaela Schifrin era, during Janica Kostelic in Croatia, Ivica's brother, she's a little bit older than him, and so she preceded him. You did a great episode with him, by the way. And also with in Sweden, there were multiple fantastic female racers: Pernilla Wiberg, Anja Persson, and so there was more interest actually with in their media with women. So then it was kind of quite balanced. But yeah, the governance and the leadership was another story, and that's where we did need to facilitate and to introduce programs to try to encourage women.
So I do now want to touch on the British ski scene and how it looks now, because I know that this isn't your involvement necessarily recently, but the lack of lottery funding has been something that's been brought up a number of times, considering the huge success of the current men's slalom crop. So do you feel, your own opinion, do you feel that situation needs to change?
Yeah, no doubt. I recall that pre the Pyeongchang 2018 games, Dave Ryding, he didn't have lottery funding, and by now he was already at a very, very good level. And I was really trying to lobby hard and help and support his efforts to be able to get, and they gave a little bit of additional funding, I think a month or two before the games. Well, what can you do then? No, it's a tricky one, you know. Park and pipe and snowboard freestyle, they have had very good funding from UK Sports, the lottery funding, because of their medal potential. And you know, they've proven it, and it really does boil down to medals. That's the criteria that the UK Sport have. But certainly there has been some evolution, and I think that with the results now, with the team coming through and the young team, and certainly with the Carrick Smiths on the horizon as well, and Molly Butler, and there's a generation who are coming through that I think will mean that UK Sport are able to consider not only the level of the current team, but also what's coming up behind, and that they will achieve some more investment. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, it is a tricky one. I agree entirely, but it's quite a popular sport in the UK. I was reading last week somewhere where it said there's about 1.5 million people choose to go skiing for the holidays abroad every year, and you look at it and think, you know, the lottery people and that, they say there's not enough. Although yeah, they base it on Olympic results, but they say there's not enough interest to put money into a sport like that. But I can't see that. There must be, you know, it's like a chicken and egg. You know, which comes first? Do you put money in to get medals, or do you get medals before you can have the money? It doesn't seem right.
Yeah, Alan, I don't think that's quite their explanation, but one of the important things to do is to try to actually engage with all of those recreational skiers, and to be able to, you know, even going back to when I was at the British Ski Federation, you know, the efforts that we tried to make to get the ski industry to engage and to participate, and we were able to a big extent with investment into the ski pool, with companies, you know, paying to be part of it, and tour agencies and things. And you know, if there was only £1 from every trip that happened that was able to contribute, you know, there are these sort of initiatives, and there's lots of things that are happening, but this would be the way. So that's not necessarily the fact that it is a popular sport in Britain, and also when you see the number of viewers that you have with Ski Sunday, and they're running up against live coverage that you have on what's now Discovery Plus, isn't it, on Eurosport, that and then online you can watch it on all sorts of different platforms, that there is great interest there. So it's being able to try to engage and monetize opportunities through all of those skiers. You know, how would they like to participate, and if they have, you know, opportunities to be able to win competitions, or to be part of kind of marketing initiatives where they can be part of the success of the team, I think that there can be some success. But I know that GB Snowsports are working hard on it. They've got a new chairman who comes from sort of the commercial side, from the advertising side, Jason Cobold, and establishing some interesting partnerships to be able to get the team good exposure. And alongside good exposure means that companies are going to be more interested in getting involved.
Yeah, thank you.
Touching back again on the broader FIS side of things, what changes do you think are going to be made, or what changes do you think are need to be made in the future to make the sport better, more inclusive, make it last as long as possible, potentially with climate change?
Yeah, that's right. And in fact, I didn't touch on climate change in your earlier question, but it's a good time to bring it up now. But that is clearly one of the huge challenges that's got to be addressed. You know, it is the elephant in the room, and not only is the sport in all of the FIS disciplines susceptible to climate change, it also has a big responsibility because it takes place in the great outdoors, in the mountain environment. And the ski racing part of it and the competition part of it is actually serving as a promotional vehicle to be able to publicize the sport and tourism, and to have an industry there. And there are an incredible number of communities that without snow and without tourism, they just haven't got any existence. They absolutely rely on it. So it is fundamental. How can it improve? How can FIS take that responsibility seriously? Well, they've engaged a sustainability director now, which is an important step. But the calendar is something that has to be addressed. There are, of course, a lot of traditional events. Well, traditional is great and greatly admired and respected, but nevertheless, it's got to adapt to the actual circumstances. And when in those traditional places, the snow isn't going to permit the competitions to take place at that same time or even at all, then it's got to be addressed. And so I think how can it be improved on the calendar side? It's a case of also honing in on where the snow and the conditions are best at certain times of the year, minimizing travel. During the COVID time, for example, when the competitions were kind of clustered, and to have a number of different events in the same place, or respectively in the same region, so that all of the competitions which take place in Scandinavia can be at a certain time, and just to try to make the whole travel behind it more efficient, certainly. And there are other sports who are doing that too, and rather than crisscrossing backwards and forwards and sideways several times, it's not done by magic. It's not easy. It really isn't, because there are then the holiday periods that places are blocked and they can't do competitions, and then there are these factors that it's high season and things like that. But nevertheless, where there's a will, there's a way, and so I think that is an important aspect. Addressing the injury situation has been on the agenda for a very long time, and you haven't featured that too much in the podcast yet, and the number of injuries, although we have had to listen to a lot of athletes who've talked about just the number of injuries that they've had, which has been pretty severe in some cases. But nevertheless, addressing the injuries, what are the big causes, and so that cooperation with the biomechanical side, with the equipment side, and with also the preparation of the courses is absolutely imperative, because it's got to be a sport that you actually feel is safe to send your children to participate. So I think that's important. And look, there are a lot of sports out there. There are a lot of sports. They get a lot of visibility, and there's a huge choice these days. It's not traditional anymore that kids who are brought up in the mountains will naturally go and do snow sports, because they're looking at football and think, well, I can make a serious career here, or golf and tennis and sports that are really well remunerated. So it's a pretty hard sell, and it's absolutely vital that the values of skiing and of winter sports are communicated in the best possible way to make them attractive, and to show just how enjoyable it is as a sport to be out in the mountains, to be able to experience that environment, and that it's not only a sport for your competitive career, but it's a recreation that you can do all of your life. and you can do it with your family, with your friends, and it's something that can give you great pleasure for a long time, and not just restricted to that short professional career.
That's right. Yeah, that's good.
So
do you think we've managed to convince a few people that it's a good sport to do?
Hopefully, yeah.
Good.
Well, we as a family still ski together. Three generations. So, and we love it. That's probably one of the things what keeps us all going as skiers, because it's sometimes we can get together and we're all doing you get up in the morning and you know what you're going to do, regardless of ages. I want to do this. No, put your skis on. We're on the mountain. It's brilliant.
yeah, so yeah.
That's fantastic.
Do you feel that there are more things that could be done to help out younger racers, or not help out younger racers, help younger racers, but also get younger people in the sport as well?
Oh, absolutely. There always are. The cost is a big prohibitive factor. If we're sticking to this country, to Great Britain, actually, it's a huge advantage that Britain has now compared to a lot of other places to have with the indoor snow slopes.
Yeah.
Because it is possible to go and ski for a couple of hours at not an extortionate cost, and find out, well, that was brilliant, I loved it, or maybe that's not for me, I'll stick to the swimming pool. But it's more accessible, it's closer, and it's much less expensive. You haven't got to have all the equipment. And so that makes a big difference, and I think that makes it really accessible. And the fact of having the slopes, dry slopes like I grew up on, and Dave Ryding and many others, when you look back on it, they're not that much fun. And they but they were a great means to an end, and fantastic for technical training, and brilliant to learn a lot of other competition skills, actually. And as well as kind of creating a bond and getting to ski together with other colleagues and doing this too. So I think that we have got this opportunity, and it's important that the operators try to be inclusive. For example, on the non-busy periods, that they're giving very special rates for kids, and they're reaching out to perhaps different sectors of society, and giving special opportunities through youth projects and through social groups to be able to come. Now, obviously not at peak times, but they for sure have got down times too. And then by having, I think, also instructors and management who come from different sectors of society, who they have a diverse employment, so that they can also engage, and that kids from different backgrounds can say, I can see people who look like me and who have a similar background to me, who are involved there, and they're telling me it's really great and it's fun and so on. So skiing should be something for everybody.
Yeah, it should.
There is something else I'd like to bring up, and that is FIS TV and the conversations that are now happening ahead of the change of rights in a couple of years' time, and whether that could potentially engage more young people.
I don't know sort of the details about it, but I mean, if it's going to be the opportunity to engage with background features and with more kind of behind the scenes information, not just the racing part, and to make the sport really appealing, and to have lots of sort of good social media type engagement and make it attractive, then yeah, hopefully. And if it's going to be free access and easy to get on anywhere from anywhere in the world, it's not geo-blocked, and then hopefully that will be one of the tools that they can use.
Mm-hmm. I did also want to ask, do you still ski and get involved with sports yourself?
Yes, is the answer to all of that. In terms of still skiing, I didn't ski last winter. We've been living in Switzerland for 30 years, and in fact moved back to the UK exactly 3 months ago today. And last winter in Switzerland was not very good in terms of snow while we were there. And I was sort of a bit busy packing up 30 years of being in Switzerland and getting all that taken care of. So there wasn't really too much opportunity to. But I am involved in terms of connected very closely with the sport at all sorts of levels, including supporting the new chair of GB Snowsports and being involved and helping out. And in fact, yesterday, I just agreed to take on a role with Snow Camp. And you should do a podcast with the founder, with Dan. Snow Camp is a fantastic charity in terms of what they're doing to engage with the sport and the role that it plays across the sport. So I'm going to take on a role with their development board as an advisor and help them make further progress across it. And in terms of actually doing sport, I do sport every day. That is my that's my go-to. It's the first thing I do when I roll out of bed in the morning. It begins with yoga, because when you get to a certain age, Alan might be able to tell you about this, Matt, what you've got in store. Let's say you're not quite as flexible as you were. So I can highly recommend yoga to kind of get cracking. And then I'll do something in the gym, which is just outside. So I work out properly every day. That's a must have.
Lovely.
How old do you think he is?
Oh, can't be a day over 60.
I wish. Yeah, I've just turned 81.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Well,
that's what my birth certificate says, isn't it?
Fantastic.
I don't feel it.
That's fantastic. Congratulations, Alan. There probably aren't too many 81-year-old podcasters.
No. Certainly not with a young lad like my grandson here. As a team.
That's it.
Yeah,
fantastic.
I have just got one last thing. Is there anything you'd like to ask us or say to those that have stayed tuned in?
Well, I mean, I think I actually asked you quite a few questions before we started recording, and it's been fantastic to learn about your background and how you got involved and what you're doing in terms of why you've set up the podcast, and Matt, your keenness of working in sports broadcasting. And this is a great tool to do it, and the support that Alan's given you, and to really hear your passion for skiing and for snow sports is fantastic. And I wish you all the very best. And if you need any support and help with any other contacts that you'd like to get guests on the podcast, it's please don't hesitate to reach out.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It's a great conversation, a different one, but still just as good.
Extremely interesting.
I'm glad you could enjoy it. I did too. Good. It was very nice to meet both of you, and wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much, and the same to you and your family.
Cheers.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.